Elliot wasn't one for ghost stories, but the moment he set foot inside the Stanley Hotel, something felt wrong. The air near the west wing carried a bitter chill, like breathing in old ice and wet stone. On his third night alone, with the wind howling like a warning through the cracked window panes, he found it. A thick, antique brass key, half buried under dusty towels inside a locked supply closet. It was ice cold, unnaturally so, and etched with a faded 217 beneath a rusted crown. When he touched it, his mouth filled with the sour taste of copper and bile. For a split second, he swore he saw a figure in the hallway, mirror tall, dressed in an old maid's uniform, face hidden behind a veil, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He tried to laugh it off, but the lights above buzzed louder than before, flickering like dying fireflies. He told himself it was just an old key, but his hands trembled. The key felt ... aware. That night, in his room, dreams bled into memory. He saw visions, flickers of a maid screaming inside room 217 as gas exploded around her. Then came the rituals, blood circles carved into wood, salt poured under beds, old prayers mumbled in forgotten dialects. Locals once whispered of a veiled mourner trapped after death. Elizabeth, a woman whose grief curdled into rage when her lover, a guest, never returned. They tried to banish her with blessings and bells, but she remained, watching, waiting. The next morning, the key was gone from his pocket. In its place, a single black rose petal and the unmistakable smell of burnt hair. Elliot turned to leave the hallway but found the walls oozing red. Room 217's door stood ajar. Inside, someone whispered his name. The hallway outside room 217 felt colder than it should have. The ornate wallpaper peeled in slow curls, revealing rotted wood beneath, black with moisture. Elliot stepped forward, each floorboard groaning beneath his weight like a warning. The faint smell of decay hung in the air mold, burnt fabric, and something metallic like pennies soaked in vinegar. He ran his fingers along the wall, but the surface was damp and sticky, like sweat from a fevered corpse. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the low creak of a rocking chair, though no rooms nearby were occupied. A soft whisper brushed against his ear, his name drawn out in a childlike tone that made his skin tighten. He spun, but no one was there. Trying to calm himself, Elliot stepped back into the main hallway. The lights overhead steadied. For a moment, the warmth returned. Guests walked by, laughing. He even saw a cleaning cart being pushed by a young woman. Maybe it was all in his head. Maybe he needed sleep. But when he turned to glance at the maid, her face was wrong, blurred, stretched, veiled. Her hand left a black smear on the wall. And just like that, she was gone that night. Elliot found an old guest ledger tucked beneath his bed, though he hadn't seen it there before. The pages were yellowed, and many names were crossed out with angry slashes. One entry read, Elizabeth Grayson, maid, deceased, but still working. His breath hitched. The taste of iron filled his mouth. The room swayed. That night, the wallpaper in his room writhed as if breathing. He heard sobbing from inside the closet, his own voice echoing in the silence that followed. His phone lit up on its own. A text appeared from an unsaved number. "You've been chosen to stay?" Elliot tried to convince himself that it was a prank. Maybe someone hacked his phone. He deleted the message, turned off the screen, and tossed the phone onto the dresser. Silence followed. No whispers, no strange shadows. He sighed in relief and lay back, the mattress oddly warm beneath him, almost pulsing. For a fleeting moment, things seemed normal. But then came to sound like someone dragging wet cloth across glass, coming from inside the wall. He leaned closer. The wallpaper bulged, something pressing from the other side, pushing outward like a bloated face, trying to escape. A sickly, sweet stench filled the room. Rotted flowers mixed with bile and copper. Elliot gagged. The air itself tasted of blood. In the corner, the air shimmered, and a vision overtook him. A flickering image of a young woman in a maid's uniform, Elizabeth, standing in room 217, holding a bundle wrapped in towels. Blood soaked through. She whispered a lullaby in reverse. Then, darkness. He blinked, and the vision was gone, but the carpet beneath him was wet, as if something had just been dragged across it. Shaken, Elliot opened the wardrobe to find it empty, except for a single, crumpled letter, written in trembling cursive. She drowned the child, but he never left. His hands trembled. He backed away. The mirror across the room cracked. The walls started to drip dark red, slow, like sweat made of blood. It didn't stop. He ran for the door, flung it open, and the hallway was normal again. Lights on, music playing from the dining hall. Relief. He laughed, short and nervous. Maybe he was imagining all of it, until he looked down. His bare feet left bloody prints on the white hallway carpet. The walls were clean, the floor pristine except for his trail, and the door to room 217 slowly clicked shut behind him. Its own asterisk, determined to make sense of what he was experiencing. Elliot returned to room 217 the next morning, this time armed with a flashlight, a notebook, and the kind of resolve only fear can fuel. The morning light filtered through the frosted window panes, casting long, skeletal shadows across the faded floral carpet. The air was thick metallic, damp, clinging to his skin like sweat. As he opened the old armoire again, a brittle envelope fell out, landing with a papery sigh. Inside, he found a faded photograph, a young woman, Elizabeth, with hollow eyes, holding a newborn in front of the very same mirror, now cracked behind him. Scrawled on the back in smudged ink, he cried, 4 days, even in the water. The whispers returned, barely audible, curling around his ears like steam. He spun around. Nothing. Then, under the bed, he found a tiny wooden box carved with strange symbols. K. Inside, a lock of damp hair and an infant's shoe, still stained dark at the heel. The room pulsed with cold. Every surface he touched felt like damp stone, and the walls themselves seemed to contract with every breath he took. Still, for a moment, the lights flickered back to normal. The room felt calm. Even the air was still. Then the mirror rippled. Elliot collapsed, vision spinning as another hallucination overtook him, this time a ritual. Locals in black robes, chanting in a lost dialect, ringing bells, burning sage, tossing soil over the child's crib. The ritual failed. A shriek echoed. The entity was never contained. Sweating, heart racing, he stumbled to the hallway again. A maid passed by, humming. "Don't worry," she smiled. "Some rooms just don't like strangers." A reflection in the cracked mirror was still staring long after she'd walked away, and Elliot noticed she had no eyes. Asterisk that night, Elliot returned, drawn by a force he could no longer resist. Room 217 seemed to breathe in his presence, its walls groaning softly, as if remembering him. The moment he stepped inside, the scent hit him wet copper, like rusted blood. The floorboards moaned under his weight. The old chandelier above rattled, though no wind stirred. He set up a small recorder on the nightstand and spoke into it, voice trembling. "Tell me who you are," Static hissed in reply. Then a whisper. He was never buried. The bed's linen had shifted since morning, like flesh left in snow. Beneath the mattress, Elliot found a torn page from a 1909 guest ledger, smudged and water damaged. Beside one name, Elizabeth Warren, was the note. requested a priest. Left in the night. Baby missing. Panic clawed at Elliot's chest. He heard the faint gurgle of a child from the bathroom. Turned the knob with a shaking hand. The tub was empty. Then, at WASN, 10 quotes, dark water bubbled up, thick and foul, swirling into the shape of tiny hands before collapsing. Elliot stumbled back. The walls began to weep thin. Red trails trickled from the corners, dripping down in slow, rhythmic patterns. A heartbeat echoing in plaster. He dropped to his knees, gasping. For a moment, everything stilled. The crying stopped. Even the smell eased. He thought it was over, but then the mirror cracked again, and inside, it clear as daylight, he saw the ritual chamber. Monks dousing a child in river water, chanting in desperation, trying to cleanse the curse. But the child never blinked, never cried, and never drowned. Locals called it the waterless baptism, a failure the town never spoke of. Then Elliot's recorder clicked back on and whispered, in his own voice, "He's not done yet." The next morning, Elliot woke on the floor of room 217, shivering, with blood in his mouth and no memory of falling asleep. The taste was metallic, bitter like licking rusted nails. His hands were raw, scratched, as if he'd been clawing at something in the night. The air was thick with rot, a mix of decayed wood, mildew, and something old or sweet, almost like rotting meat left in a copper bowl. He staggered to the bathroom. The tub was dry again, but the mirror bore a single handprint, too small for an adult, smudged and brown. It wasn't there last night. He turned on the recorder, static. Then a voice, his own, snorted, "Dig where the wallpaper peels." The far corner of the room. Elliot tore at the old floral paper. Behind it, a wooden panel. Beneath that, a cavity in a wall. Inside it, a child's shoe, black leather, water damaged, with something rolled up inside. A diary page, written in an erratic hand. The others burned, but he watched. I saw him under the tub, smiling when the priest drowned. Taste. I shouldn't have stayed the night. Elliot's mind cracked like ice under weight. His thoughts were no longer his own. Whispers followed him soft, insistent, like water running through pipes filled with teeth. The walls pulsed. The carpet squelched when he walked. He escaped the room, sat in the hallway, panting, trying to center himself. For a moment, silence, normality, until he looked up. Every room door now bore the same number, 217. In the distance, he heard a lullaby, hummed, not sung, slow and wet, the kind a mother sings when she's already grieving. The hotel once hosted a group of nuns during a winter retreat. One was found in the tub, smiling, eyes missing. Now, Elliot couldn't tell if he was inside the room or if the room was inside him. Asterisk, Elliot stumbled through the corridor. Walls pressing inward like lungs exhaling centuries of grief. The smell hit him first, sharp copper, like pennies soaked in bile. Then came the texture beneath his fingertips. Slick wallpaper, pulsing faintly. It was warm, alive. He tried not to touch anything, but the floor was already bleeding through the carpet. Thick and black, pooling around his shoes. The lights above flickered in slow, painful rhythm. That's when the vision hit, hymning, vited, unblinking. A flash of the past. The room, decades ago. Candlelight. A circle of guests chanting in Latin. Their faces stretched in ecstasy and dread. One woman, pale with sunken eyes, was missing her mouth. Yet she was the one chanting the loudest dot. Elliot blinked and screamed. His hands were coated in something slick, thicker than water, colder than oil. His reflection in the mirror down the hall smiled before he did. His own voice whispered from inside his mouth, "He doesn't want you to leave yet." Key backed away, gagging on the taste old blood and bile. For a moment, the hallway went still, clean, normal, as if none of it had happened. He laughed, short and nervous. Maybe it was all in his head. Then the elevator door dinged open on its own. Inside was no elevator, only darkness stretching forever, filled with echoes of children crying and wood splintering under invisible hands. On the wall beside it, scrawled in something brown and flaking, were words in an old dialect he recognized from the town's folklore museum. The townsfolk had tried sealing room 217 once, decades ago, with salt, with prayer, with blood. None of it worked. One priest disappeared during the ritual, the other drowned in the tub 3 days later. Elliot turned to run but found the hallway had vanished, placed by dozens of identical doors, all slowly opening. Elliot burst through one of the doors, any door desperate for escape, only to find himself back in room 217. The walls were heaving now, as if breathing around him. Plastic cracked, veins of black mold spread like claws. The floorboards moaned under invisible weight. A rancid, iron-rich stench filled the air, stinging his nostrils and clinging to his throat. He tasted something metallic on his tongue, blood, thick and warm. Or was it bile? He couldn't tell anymore. On the desk sat a rusted tin box he hadn't seen before. Hands trembling, he opened it. Inside, brittle news clippings and a rosary melted to bone. It's one article read: local boy vanishes in Stanley Hotel bathtub, body never found. Another priest missing during exorcism room, sealed indefinitely. His fingers brushed a child's tooth, yellowed and cracked, tucked beside a handwritten note. The drowned do not rest. They rise, they call, they wear your skin to leave. He staggered back as skin crawled literally. Tiny red bumps rose across his arms, twitching like they held something beneath. He clawed at them until he bled, but the itching only deepened. Behind him, the tub began to gurgle again. Water black, oily spilled over the edges. A shape surfaced. Body, but a mask, pale, smiling, empty, dash-eyed. Then, silence. The gurgling stopped. The lights steadied. The stench faded. Elliot sank to the floor, sobbing. Maybe it was over. Maybe he had imagined it all. But in the mirror across the room, his reflection didn't cry. It smiled. Its eyes were too dark, too deep. It raised its hand before Elliot did. Then it mouthed something. Not words, it's just one sound. A wet, choking laugh. The tub creaked behind him. Something climbed out. Elliot screamed, but no sound escaped. The room had swallowed his voice. Its cold sweat drenched his back as he scrambled away from the tub, its black surface now steaming, releasing a thick fog that smelled like rotting meat and old pennies. His shoes slipped on the slip floor. Blood or water, tinted red, sipped from beneath the tiles. He touched the wall for balance, but it pulsed beneath his palm, warm and fleshy, like skin stretched over bone. The paint cracked open and a single, blackened fingernail pushed out, twitching. He ran for the door, heart hammering like a war drum, but the knob was gone. In its place, a jagged hole stared back, breathing. He dropped to his knees, gasping, feeling the walls close in. Whispers rose around him, childlike giggles. A woman's sobbing, wet, dragging sounds behind the bed. Every shadow stretched long, every corner seemed to bend inward. In a sudden flicker of calm, the room returned to silence. The light softened, even the walls cooled. Elliot dared to hope it was over, just a night born of exhaustion. But then he spotted the journal, leather-bound, its cover etched with runes and salt stains. Inside, page after page of failed rituals, desperate scribbles from past guests. One passage stood out. The drowned child is not a spirit. He is a hunger. He was buried in the well before the hotel was built. Water only spread him. Elliot's hands trembled as he turned the last page. Recent entry, fresh ink. He takes the ones who listen too long, who believe. Who read this far? Suddenly, Elliot felt warmth on his feet. He looked down. The rug was gone. He was standing ankle deep in water, the floor beneath him. Breathing. Elliot's scream echoed into silence, then was swallowed whole. The water surged up his legs, freezing cold and thick like oil. It reeked of rot, old rust, and something bitter, like bile. Gagged. The floor pulsed beneath the surface, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The walls bled black liquid now, not paint, not water, something older, something living. The lights flickered overhead, buzzing like flies trapped in glass, and with each flicker, shadows grew fingers. He tried to move, but his limbs wouldn't listen. His muscles trembled uncontrollably. He thought he heard his own name whispered from inside the drain, soft at first, then screamed in a child's voice, warped by water. A cold hand brushed his ankle, then another. He turned to run, slipping, falling face first into the rising flood. It tasted of blood, metallic, thick. He surfaced, coughing violently, wiping the taste of something ancient from his lips. Through the blur of panic, the room shimmered. A vision unfolded, brief and broken. A boy, eyes sewn shut, mouth open in a silent scream, submerged in a well lined with salt and iron spikes. Men in black robes stood above, chanting in a tongue not meant for human mouths. The ritual had failed. The entity hadn't been sealed, had been fed. The well was buried. The hotel rose atop it, pretending peace. Elliot gasped as the image snapped away. The room returned, but the ceiling had cracked open, and water poured from above. For a second, the flood receded. The air warmed, the light stilled. He stood, thinking it might be over. Then every mirror in the room shattered at once. Behind every shard, the child stared back at him, smiling. But Elliot was alone. Or was he? The whisper came again, from inside his head.